All right, so one of my favorite players in this year's draft class, and Stephon Castle, has been super impressive so far throughout these first couple of games. In the Summer League last night against China, he had 18 points alongside with 6 rebounds and 5 assists. And against the Kings a couple of nights ago, which was his first Summer League game, he had 12 points, 6 boards, and 3 assists. So these aren't super eye-popping stats, but the way in which he's been getting it done, the eye test, it's been pretty impressive. And we know at UConn, his on-ball ability was hidden a bit, and that made sense because of who they already had. He was playing alongside with Tristan Newton, who was one of the best, if not the best point guard in college basketball. But what we've seen from Castle so far throughout the Summer League is him showing off more upside as a more ball-dominant player. We've seen some solid shot creation, a couple of mid-range looks, and even some self-created threes we saw in game one. Also, we've shown off this playmaking upside, which is going to be huge for the Spurs as they're looking for a long-term playmaker to pair alongside with Victor Wembanyama. And for Castle individually, this is big for him as far as his development as being a complete offensive force. And also he's showing off this ability to get downhill, which was a big-time strength that he showed off in college. Actually, he's done a lot of work so far throughout the Summer League in the high pick and roll, getting to either some paint finishes or dump-off passes. So long story short, the biggest thing we've wanted to see for Castle on this stage is his ability to do things on the ball. And through these 2 games, he's done just that. On top of his basketball ability, there are also some intangible reasons as to why I think he's going to be very successful early on. For one, he showed off this ability to play a role on the collegiate level on a championship winning team. So if you're playing in an offense like UConn, where there is a lot of cutting going on, a lot of complex off-ball actions and reads, if you're playing in that type of offense, that breeds certain instincts and skill sets that are key to winning and that are translatable across different levels of basketball, right? So here's the best way I can kind of sum it up. There are certain things that separate players, right? And that's being able to find ways to impact the game on offense when their shot creating ability is taken away. So a perfect example of that is Jason Tatum. His shot creating wasn't at like an all-time high in that series against the Mavericks, but he did the little things well, whether that was his playmaking or his cutting off the ball. Those things helped create a positive for the Celtics on the offensive end. So while he wasn't super in rhythm as a shot creator, he knew how to do the other little things off the ball well. And that's how the Celtics were able to be dominant offensively throughout that series against the Mavericks, right? And that's the same thing here with Stephon Castle. He did that in college playing for UConn. That's going to be very translatable to the NBA, right? And like I said, those skills are attained through learning how to play well within a system. And he did that at UConn. He's going to continue to do that here with the Spurs, alongside with showing off his ability to do things well on the ball. Long story short, Stephon Castle knows how to do the little stuff very well, and that was breeded through what he was doing over at UConn. Also, there's this. His winning experience at UConn within and of itself is very translatable across different levels of basketball. So the Villanova guys in New York are a perfect example of this, right? That's Jalen Brunson, Bridges, Dante DiVincenzo, and Josh Hart. Those guys played in multiple title games, and this experience allowed them to be pretty effective in the league early on. Draft experts don't talk enough about the importance of winning experience when navigating draft prospects, right? A lot of the talk is about upside, what a guy could end up doing years down the road. Experts don't talk enough about the experience that players have with winning and how that can help them once they get into the league and how effective they are from day one. And those other things are very important, but winning experience is also important. Having a lot of reps on a winning team in a winning situation, those things are very important. I think it's one of the biggest reasons why Coach Popovich and the Spurs decided to draft him, right? And we've seen that kind of hurt a lot of drafted players over the course of time. Ben Simmons didn't do a lot of winning in college. I don't even think they made the tournament. And if you look at things now, there's some translatability there, right? Also with James Wiseman, he didn't get a ton of reps at Memphis, and look at how things kind of turned out for him, right? I'm not saying that's the only reason why those guys ended up having issues later on in their careers, but it is a reason, right? So the experience of being in a winning situation in college, those things can help you once you get to the NBA level, right? They can either help you or hurts you. And also, let's think about this. The system in which he was drafted into will set him up for success. The Spurs, as we know, have been one of the best front offices and just have one of the best team cultures in the league over like the last 2 decades. And also, he's going to be playing under one of the greatest coaches of all time and arguably the greatest coach of all time with Coach Popovich. We just drafted into this perfect situation, right? That was the same stuff we were saying about Victor Wembanyama, right? Him being a future quote unquote NBA legend, which is going to be hard to tell after just year one. But that's one of the biggest reasons why people thought he was going to do well was because of who he was under the tutelage of, right? Same effect here with Stephon Castle. Also, if we're talking about developing Castle as a dominant on-ball player, who is a better mentor to have than Chris Paul? Look at what Paul did in his 1 year with OKC. He was there for a season, helped get him to the playoffs. But what was another major accomplishment? That was how he helped develop SGA. And look at the player SGA is now. A lot of that is because of what he learned from under Chris Paul or playing next to Chris Paul, right? So those are reasons why I think Stephon Castle is going to be one of the most successful guys from day one. And I think the Spurs have started what could be a very good duo down the road. They've done an amazing job so far throughout this rebuild, starting with Victor Wembanyama, which is like the best guy you could start a rebuild with, and also with picking up Stephon Castle, who has shown off some ridiculous upside so far throughout the summer league. So we'll see how he plays throughout the rest of the summer league, and we'll see how translatable this is to actually playing in the regular season. But great job by this front office and great flashes we've seen early on by Stephon Castle, who was amazing on the college level, and I'm convinced he's going to be great playing for the Spurs on the NBA level.